The rain hammered against the workshop windows like angry fists, and I sat there in the dark with a glass of whiskey, staring at my phone. 3 in the morning, and Reina still wasn't home. Again. My name is Rowan Kerrick, and I build custom homes for people who have more money than sense. 20 years in construction, 5 years married to a woman who used to laugh at my jokes and actually seemed to enjoy my company. These days, she barely looked up from her phone when I walked into a room. The workshop smelled of sawdust and motor oil, familiar scents that usually calmed me down. Tonight, they just reminded me how much time I'd been spending out here lately, avoiding the cold silence that had settled over our house like morning fog on Bass Lake. I'd been suspicious for weeks. The late nights at her fitness studio, the secretive texting, the sudden business retreats that never seemed to involve any actual business I could identify. Reina owned a boutique fitness place called Elevate, and sure, it was growing, but not fast enough to justify 3 overnight trips to Portland in 1 month. So tonight, I'd done something I never thought I'd do. I'd used the Find My app to track her phone. She was at the lake, specifically at a location that matched the Lakeview Hideaway, a cluster of rental cabins that charged by the hour as often as by the night. I'd sent her a text around midnight. Bring me some coffee when you get home, unless you're too busy. No response. The whiskey burned, but not as much as the certainty settling in my chest. My wife was cheating on me. After 5 years of marriage, after all the plans we'd made, after the house we'd built together. Literally, since I'd done most of the work myself, she was sneaking around with someone else. I heard her car in the driveway at 3:15. The engine cut off, and I listened to her footsteps on the gravel, slow and careful. She was trying not to wake me. I stayed in the workshop, watching through the window as she fumbled with her keys at the back door. Even in the porch light, I could see she looked different. Her hair was mussed, her blouse wrinkled. She kept checking her phone. The house was dark when she slipped inside. I gave her 10 minutes to get settled, then walked through the back door myself, making just enough noise to announce my presence. "Reina?" I heard a sharp intake of breath from the living room, followed by the sound of something hitting the floor. "Rowan? You scared me. I thought you were asleep." I found her standing by the couch, looking flustered. Her phone lay face down on the hardwood floor where she'd dropped it. She was wearing the black blouse I'd bought her for her birthday, but it was buttoned wrong. "Couldn't sleep?" I said, keeping my voice casual. "How was yoga?" She blinked. "Yoga? You said you were going to that late-night class in Portland, the one that runs until midnight." "Oh, right. Yes, it was." She bent to pick up her phone, and I caught a glimpse of the screen as it lit up. A text message notification from someone labeled LB. The preview was enough. "Miss you already. Next time stay all night." She saw me looking and quickly flipped the phone over, but the damage was done. Her face had gone pale. "So," I said, settling into my recliner like this was any normal conversation. "How was yoga?" "It was fine. Good. Really good workout." She was babbling now, the words tumbling out too fast. "We worked on flexibility and breathing techniques, and there's this new instructor who's really challenging, and I think I'm getting stronger, you know? My core feels much more stable." I nodded along, watching her weave this elaborate fiction. Part of me was impressed by her creativity. Most of me was just tired. "Must have been quite a workout," I said. "You look a little disheveled." Her hand went automatically to her hair. "Oh, you know how it is. Hot yoga, very sweaty." "In October? In Maine?" She froze. "What do you mean?" "It's 45 degrees outside, Reina. Not exactly hot yoga weather." The studio was heated, very heated, like really hot. She was digging herself deeper with every word. Almost uncomfortably hot. I pulled out my phone and opened the Find My app, making sure she could see the screen. Her location history showed a clear trail from our house to the lake, where she'd stayed from 9 p.m. until about 3 a.m. "Funny thing about technology," I said. "It's so helpful for keeping track of the people we love." Her eyes widened as she saw the map. "Rowan, I can explain." "Can you?" "Because I'm really curious how a yoga studio in Portland ended up relocating to a cabin on Bass Lake." She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her phone buzzed with another message, and she instinctively looked down. The screen showed another text from LB. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow night." "Who's LB?" I asked. "Nobody. Just a friend." "A friend who misses you and can't wait to see you tomorrow night." She clutched the phone against her chest. "It's not what you think." "What I think," I said, standing up slowly, "is that my wife has been lying to me for weeks. What I think is that she's been sneaking around with someone whose initials are LB, and she's been using our marriage as a cover story while she figures out her next move." Tears started forming in her eyes. "Rowan, please." What I think, I continued, is that she just spent 6 hours at a lake cabin with her boyfriend, and now she's standing in our living room trying to convince me it was a yoga class. It's not like that. Then what is it like, Reina? Help me understand. She was crying now, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no urge to comfort her. Just a cold, calculating anger that surprised me with its intensity. I never meant for this to happen, she whispered. But it did happen, and you kept it happening, for weeks. She nodded, unable to meet my eyes. Who is he? Does it matter? It matters to me. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, Luther Braddock. I knew the name. Luke Braddock was a real estate developer who'd been buying up lake properties and turning them into luxury vacation rentals. He was probably 20 years older than Reina, with a reputation for cutting corners and bribing building inspectors. He was also married. Luke Braddock, I repeated. The guy who's been trying to buy the Henderson property for the past year? Yes. The guy who offered me that contract job last spring, then tried to stiff me on the payment? Yes. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Well, that's just perfect. My wife is having an affair with a man who already tried to screw me once. Rowan, I'm sorry. No, you're not. Not yet. But you will be. I walked toward the stairs, then stopped and looked back at her. She was still standing there holding her phone, tears streaming down her face, looking like a stranger. If you're going to cheat, I said, at least be original. Luke Braddock? Really? That's the best you could do? I went upstairs and closed the bedroom door, leaving her standing alone in the living room. Through the thin walls, I could hear her making a phone call, her voice low and urgent. I didn't try to listen. I didn't need to. I already knew everything I needed to know. My wife was having an affair with Luke Braddock. They'd been meeting at the lake cabins. She'd been lying to me for weeks, maybe months, and tomorrow I was going to start making them both pay for it. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the rain and planning my next move. Reina thought she was smart, thought she'd been careful, but she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd forgotten that I was smarter. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I lay in bed listening to Reina pace around downstairs, occasionally hearing the murmur of phone calls. Around 5 a.m., she finally came upstairs and slipped into bed beside me, careful not to make contact. I pretended to be asleep. At 7, my alarm went off, and I went through my normal morning routine. Shower, coffee, check the weather. Reina stayed in bed, feigning sleep herself. We were like two actors in a play, both pretending the other didn't know the truth. I'll be at the Morrison job site today, I called out as I headed for the door. Probably won't be home until late. No response. But I wasn't going to the Morrison site. Instead, I drove straight to Vince Castellano's office. Vince was my best friend and a former cop who'd gone private about 5 years ago. He specialized in insurance fraud and divorce cases, which meant he was very good at finding evidence of things people didn't want found. His office was in a converted warehouse downtown, squeezed between a coffee shop and a used bookstore. The sign on the door read, Castellano Investigations, in faded gold letters. Rowan, he said when I walked in. You look terrible. What happened? Vince was built like a fire hydrant, short, broad, and nearly indestructible. He had the kind of face that made people want to confess things, which had served him well both as a cop and as a PI. Reina's cheating on me, I said without preamble. He poured 2 cups of coffee from a machine that looked older than both of us. You sure? Caught her coming home at 3 a.m. from a lake cabin. She tried to tell me she was at yoga class. Yoga? He shook his head. They never come up with anything original. Who's the guy? Luke Braddock. Vince whistled low. The real estate guy? The one who's been buying up half the lake? That's the one. He's married, isn't he? Very married, to a woman who inherited a construction company from her father. Vince leaned back in his chair. So what do you want to do about it? I want to know everything. How long it's been going on, where they meet, what they're planning. I want documentation. You thinking divorce? I'm thinking I want to be prepared for whatever comes next. Vince nodded. I can do that. But it's going to take some time, and it won't be cheap. How much time? Give me a week. Maybe less if they're sloppy about it. They're sloppy, I said. Trust me. I spent the rest of the day actually working at the Morrison site, framing walls and trying not to think about what Reina might be doing. But by evening, I had a plan. Instead of going home, I drove to the Crooked Lantern, a dive bar on the outskirts of town where contractors and real estate people sometimes gathered after work. If I was lucky, I might pick up some useful gossip. I wasn't disappointed. Sierra Valdez was holding court at the bar, 3 drinks in and talking loudly to anyone who'd listen. Sierra was Reina's best friend and business partner at the fitness studio, which made her a potential gold mine of information. And I told her, honey, if you're going to have a midlife crisis, at least pick someone who's not old enough to be your father, Sierra was saying to a woman I didn't recognize. I ordered a beer and took the stool next to her. Hey, Sierra. She turned, squinting at me through the dim light. Rowan, what are you doing here? Just grabbing a drink after work. You? Oh, you know, girls' night out. Well, girls' night without the girl, since Reina had another one of her mysterious meetings. Mysterious meetings? Sierra leaned closer, lowering her voice conspiratorially. She's been having all these hush-hush business conferences lately. Very secretive. Won't tell me what they're about, just that they're important for the studio's future. Huh? That's weird. Right? I mean, we're partners. I should know about any major business decisions. She took another sip of her drink. Between you and me, I think she's planning something big. Maybe selling out, maybe bringing in a new investor. She's been acting really strange lately. Strange how? Just different. Secretive. And she's been spending a lot of money. New clothes, expensive dinners, that kind of thing. When I asked her about it, she said business was good, but our books don't show that kind of profit. I filed that information away. Maybe she's just being optimistic about the future. Maybe, or maybe she's got some sugar daddy bankrolling her lifestyle. Sierra giggled at her own joke, not realizing how close to the truth she was. Any idea who this mysterious investor might be? No clue. She won't say. But whoever it is, they've got deep pockets, and they like meeting at weird hours and weird places. I bought Sierra another drink and let her keep talking. Over the next hour, I learned that Reina had been having business meetings at least twice a week for the past 2 months. Always in the evenings, always away from the studio. She'd been evasive about the details, claiming client confidentiality. You know what's really weird? Sierra said, now well into her 4th drink. She's been asking me about business law stuff, like what happens to a partnership if one partner wants out. What kind of notice do you have to give? That kind of thing. Sounds like she might be planning to leave. That's what I'm afraid of. I mean, the studio was her idea, but we built it together. If she bails on me now... Sierra trailed off, staring into her drink. I left the bar with more information than I'd hoped for. Reina wasn't just having an affair, she was planning to abandon her business partnership too, which suggested she was preparing for a major life change. The next morning, Vince called with preliminary results. Your wife and Luke Braddock have been meeting regularly for at least 8 weeks, he said. They're not very careful about it. Same cabin every time, same routine. He pays cash, she shows up an hour later, they stay until the early morning hours. What else? I did some digging on Braddock. He's in financial trouble. His last 3 development projects went over budget, and he's facing some regulatory issues with the county. Word is he needs a big score soon, or he's going to lose everything. What kind of big score? The Henderson property, maybe. It's the last undeveloped waterfront parcel on the lake. If he could get it and put up luxury condos, it would solve all his money problems. I thought about that. The Henderson property had been in the same family for generations. Old man Henderson had died last year, and his kids were fighting over what to do with it. Some wanted to sell, others wanted to keep it in the family. You think Reina's involved in that somehow? I don't know yet, but I'll keep digging. That evening, Reina announced she had another business meeting. Don't wait up, she said, not meeting my eyes. This one might run late. Another yoga class? She flinched. No, actual business this time. With your mysterious investor? How did you... She caught herself. What mysterious investor? Sierra mentioned you've been having a lot of meetings lately. She's worried you might be planning to sell the studio. Sierra talks too much. Maybe, or maybe she's just concerned about her business partner. Reina grabbed her purse and headed for the door. We'll talk about this later. Will we? Because lately it seems like we don't talk about anything. She paused at the door, her back to me. Things are complicated right now, Rowan. They don't have to be. Yes, they do. And then she was gone, leaving me alone in the house we'd built together, surrounded by the life we'd planned together, wondering how everything had gone so wrong. But I wasn't going to sit there feeling sorry for myself. Instead, I called Vince. She just left for another meeting, I said. You want to take a ride to the lake? I thought you'd never ask. We met at the marina and drove together to the Lakeview Hideaway. Vince had brought his camera and some basic surveillance equipment. We parked in the trees about 100 yards from the cabin Reina and Luke had been using. At 9:30, Luke's black BMW pulled into the gravel driveway. He sat in the car for a few minutes, talking on his phone, then got out and unlocked the cabin. At 10:15, Reina arrived in her Honda. She parked next to the BMW and hurried inside without looking around. How long do they usually stay? I asked. 4 to 6 hours, Vince said, adjusting his camera lens. Depends on how much talking they do. We waited in the dark, watching the warm light in the cabin windows, listening to the lake water lap against the shore. It was almost peaceful if you ignored the fact that my marriage was dissolving 50 yards away. You okay? Vince asked after a while. I will be. You want to know what I think? What? I think this isn't just about the affair. I think there's something bigger going on. The timing, the secrecy, the money Sierra mentioned, it all adds up to more than just two people sneaking around. Like what? Like maybe your wife and her boyfriend are planning something that goes beyond running away together. I thought about that as we sat in the darkness, watching and waiting. Vince was right. This felt bigger than a simple affair. It felt like a conspiracy. And conspiracies, in my experience, always fell apart eventually. The trick was making sure you were ready when they did. 3 days later, I had my answer. Vince called me at 6 a.m. with the kind of excitement in his voice that meant he'd found something big. You need to see this, he said. Can you meet me at the office in an hour? I found him hunched over his computer, surrounded by printouts and coffee cups. He looked like he'd been up all night. Remember how I said Luke Braddock needed a big score? He said without preamble. Well, I think I know what it is. He turned his monitor so I could see it. On the screen was a legal document, a purchase agreement for the Henderson property. Where did you get this? Luke's not as careful with his office security as he thinks he is. This is a preliminary agreement dated 2 weeks ago. He's offering the Henderson family $3 million for the property. That's a lot of money for a guy who's supposedly broke. That's what I thought, so I kept digging. He pulled up another document. Turns out he's got a silent partner putting up most of the money, someone who's been funneling cash into his business account over the past 2 months. Let me guess. Reina. Bingo. She's transferred almost $200,000 from the studio's business account into a shell company that Luke controls. I stared at the screen, feeling pieces of the puzzle click into place. She's embezzling from her own business to fund his real estate deal. And probably planning to disappear with him once it goes through. The Henderson property is worth at least $10 million if you develop it right. Even after construction costs, they'd walk away with enough money to start over anywhere they wanted. What about Sierra? What about her? She'd be left holding the bag when the studio goes under. I sat back in my chair, processing this new information. My wife wasn't just cheating on me and planning to leave. She was stealing money from her best friend and business partner to finance a new life with her boyfriend. There's more, Vince said. I managed to get into Luke's email account. You want to see some of their correspondence? He pulled up a series of messages between Reina and Luke, dating back almost 3 months. The early ones were flirtatious but business-focused. The recent ones were more explicit about their plans. From Luke, once the Henderson deal closes, we can be together permanently. No more sneaking around, no more lies. From Reina, I can't wait. I'm so tired of pretending to be happy in my marriage. Rowan has no ambition, no vision for the future. You understand me in ways he never could. From Luke, have you thought about how you're going to handle the divorce? We need to make sure he can't claim any part of the business or the profits from our investment. From Reina, I've been documenting his drinking and his absences from home. I can make a case for abandonment and emotional cruelty. He won't get anything. I read through the messages twice, feeling my anger crystallize into something cold and focused. They weren't just planning to steal money and run away together. They were planning to destroy me in the process. What do you want to do? Vince asked. I want to make sure they don't get away with it. You thinking about going to the police? Not yet. First, I want to confront them. I want them to know that I know. That's risky. If you tip them off, they might accelerate their timeline. Let them try. I've got something they don't know about. What's that? You, and all this evidence. I drove home and waited for Reina to get back from the studio. She walked in around 6, looking tired and distracted. How was your day? I asked, as if nothing had changed. Fine, busy. We had a problem with the air conditioning system, and I had to deal with that. Expensive? What do you mean? The repair. Was it expensive? She hesitated. Not too bad. A few $100s. That's good. I know money's been tight lately. Money's not tight. Business is good. Is it? Because Sierra mentioned you've been asking about partnership dissolution procedures. Reina went very still. What else did Sierra mention? Just that you've been acting strange lately. Secretive, like you're planning something big. I'm always planning something big. That's how you grow a business. By embezzling from it? The words hung in the air between us like a challenge. Reina's face went pale, then flushed red. I don't know what you're talking about. $200,000, Reina, transferred from the studio account to Luke Braddock's shell company over the past 2 months. She opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time since I'd known her, she was speechless. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? I continued. Did you think you could steal from your best friend, plan to abandon your marriage, and frame me for abandonment, and I'd just sit here like an idiot waiting for it to happen? Rowan, I've seen the emails, Reina. I know about the Henderson property deal. I know about your plans to disappear together once it closes. She sank into a chair, all the fight going out of her. How long have you known? Long enough. What are you going to do? That depends on what you do next. She looked up at me with something that might have been hope. What do you mean? I mean, you have a choice. You can end this now, return the money to the studio, and we can figure out how to handle the divorce like adults. Or you can keep lying, keep stealing, and see what happens when I take this evidence to the police and the state licensing board. You wouldn't? Try me. We stared at each other across the living room, two people who used to love each other, now calculating how much damage we could do to each other. I can't just end it, she said finally. It's too late for that. Why? Because you love him? Because I'm pregnant. The words hit me like a physical blow. I sat down heavily on the couch, trying to process this new information. Pregnant, I repeated. 8 weeks. And it's his? She nodded. Does he know? I told him yesterday. What did he say? He said we'd figure it out together. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Luke Braddock, the guy who's been married for 20 years and has 3 kids in college, said he'd figure it out with his pregnant mistress. He's going to leave his wife. No, he's not. Yes, he is. Once the Henderson deal goes through. Reina, listen to me. Luke Braddock is not going to leave his wife for you. He's not going to ride off into the sunset with you and your baby. He's using you for your money and your body. And when this deal falls apart, which it will, he's going to throw you under the bus so fast it'll make your head spin. You don't know him like I do. I know men like him. I've worked for men like him. They don't sacrifice their comfortable lives for their side pieces, especially when those side pieces come with complications like pregnancies and embezzlement charges. She was crying now, but I felt no sympathy for her. She'd made her choices. Now she had to live with the consequences. What are you going to do? She asked again. I'm going to give you 24 hours to return the money to the studio and end your relationship with Luke. If you do that, I'll consider keeping the police out of it. And if I don't, then I'll destroy both of you. She wiped her eyes and looked at me with something like her old defiance. You can't prove anything. Can't I? I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo of the bank transfer documents. Can't I prove you embezzled $200,000? Can't I prove you've been planning to abandon your business partner and frame me for abandonment? Can't I prove you've been having an affair with a married man and using stolen money to finance his real estate deals? Her face went white again. 24 hours, Reina, starting now. She left the house without another word. I watched her drive away, then called Vince. How did it go? He asked. She's pregnant. Oh, that complicates things. Not really. The baby isn't mine, which means I have no legal obligation to support either of them, and pregnancy doesn't excuse embezzlement. What's your next move? I'm going to wait and see what she does. If she's smart, she'll take the deal. And if she's not, then I'm going to show her what real planning looks like. I spent the rest of the evening preparing for both possibilities. If Reina took my offer, I'd have to figure out how to handle the divorce and move on with my life. If she didn't, I'd have to follow through on my threat to destroy her and Luke. Either way, my marriage was over. The only question now was how much damage would be done in the process. I fell asleep on the couch that night, listening to the wind rattle the windows and thinking about the life Reina and I had built together. 5 years of marriage, a successful business, a house we'd designed ourselves. All of it gone because she'd decided she wanted something different. Well, she was about to get something different. I just wasn't sure she was going to like it. Reina didn't come home that night. I woke up on the couch at dawn, stiff and cold, to find a text message waiting for me. Staying at Sierra's. Need time to think. I made coffee and called Vince. She didn't take the deal, I said. You sure? It's only been 12 hours. I'm sure. She's at Sierra's, which means she's probably told her everything, and knowing Sierra, half the town will know by lunchtime. That might not be a bad thing. Public pressure could work in your favor. Or it could push them into doing something desperate. I was right about Sierra. By 10 a.m., my phone was buzzing with calls and texts from friends and neighbors who'd heard various versions of the story. The gossip mill in a small town moves faster than wildfire, and it's usually about as accurate. Most people seemed to be on my side, which wasn't surprising. Luke Braddock had never been popular in town, and Reina's fitness studio catered to a wealthy clientele that didn't overlap much with the working-class folks I knew. But sympathy wasn't going to solve my problems. I needed a plan. I drove to the Henderson property to think. It was a beautiful piece of land, 50 acres of mixed forest and meadow stretching down to a half-mile of undeveloped shoreline. The old farmhouse had been torn down years ago, leaving only a stone foundation and an overgrown apple orchard. Standing there, looking out over the lake, I could see why Luke wanted it so badly. Developed properly, it could house a dozen luxury homes or a small resort. The profit potential was enormous, but Luke's plan had a fatal flaw. He didn't actually have the money to complete the purchase. He was counting on Reina's stolen funds and a construction loan that he probably wouldn't qualify for, given his recent financial troubles, which gave me an idea. I called Tom Henderson, the eldest son in the family that owned the property. "Tom, it's Rowan Kerrick. I heard you folks might be selling the lake property. Word travels fast around here. Yeah, we're considering it. Got an offer from some developer, but we're not sure it's the right move." "Mind if I ask who the developer is?" "Luke Braddock. You know him?" "I know him, and I think you should know some things about him before you sign anything." We met at Tom's house that afternoon. I showed him copies of the financial documents Vince had uncovered, Luke's debt problems, the questionable source of his funding, the embezzlement scheme. "Jesus," Tom said, looking through the papers. "This guy's a crook. He's desperate, and desperate people make bad business partners." "What do you think we should do?" "I think you should wait. Let this play out. If Luke's funding falls through, which it will, he won't be able to complete the purchase anyway. And then what? Then you'll have other options, better options." Tom agreed to hold off on signing the purchase agreement. That would buy me time to deal with Reina and Luke. My phone rang as I was driving home. It was Sierra, and she sounded upset. "Rowan, we need to talk." "About what?" "About the money. Reina told me what you accused her of, and I checked the studio accounts. The money's gone." "I know." $200,000, Rowan. That's everything we had saved for expansion. Without that money, we can't make payroll next month." "I'm sorry, Sierra. I really am. Sorry doesn't help. I need that money back." "So do I. But Reina's the one who took it. She says it was a business investment, that Luke promised her a huge return. Luke Braddock promises a lot of things. He doesn't deliver on most of them." "Can you help me get it back?" "I'm trying. But Reina has to cooperate, and so far she's not willing to do that." "What if I talk to her?" "You can try, but I think she's in too deep to back out now." Sierra was quiet for a moment. Then, "There's something else you should know. She's not staying at my place anymore. She moved in with Luke." That was fast. "When?" "This morning. She showed up with 3 suitcases and said her marriage was over." "Did she say anything else?" "She said you threatened to have her arrested. She said you were trying to frame her for something she didn't do. And you believed her?" "I didn't know what to believe, until I saw the bank records." I felt a little sorry for Sierra. She was collateral damage in this mess, an innocent victim of her best friend's greed and stupidity. "What are you going to do?" I asked. "I'm going to file a police report. Embezzlement is embezzlement, no matter what she calls it." "Good. You should." "Will you back me up, as a witness?" "Absolutely." After Sierra hung up, I called Vince. "Reina moved in with Luke," I said. "They're living together now." "That was stupid of them. Makes the affair obvious to everyone. It also makes them easier to monitor. 1 location instead of 2. You want me to keep watching them?" "For now. I have a feeling they're going to do something desperate soon." I was right. The next morning, I got a call from my lawyer. "Rowan, I just got served with some papers you need to see. Your wife is filing for emergency spousal support and exclusive use of the marital home." "On what grounds?" "She's claiming you threatened her with violence and forced her to leave the house for her own safety." I laughed. "That's ridiculous." "Maybe, but she's got an affidavit from her boyfriend backing up her story. And she's pregnant, which might influence the judge." "The baby isn't mine." "Can you prove that?" "I can prove the timeline doesn't work. We haven't been intimate in months." "That's not the same as a paternity test." "Then we'll get a paternity test. She can refuse until after the baby's born. And in the meantime, the court might award her temporary support based on the assumption that you're the father." This was exactly the kind of legal maneuvering Luke and Reina had planned. frame me as an abusive husband, claim the baby was mine, and use the court system to extract money from me while they waited for their real estate deal to close. What do you recommend? I asked. We fight it, but you need to be prepared for this to get ugly. It was already ugly. The question was how much uglier it was going to get. I spent the rest of the day preparing for war. I gathered all the evidence Vince had collected, the bank records, the emails, the surveillance photos. I made copies of everything and stored them in multiple locations. Then I drove to Luke's house. It was a sprawling colonial on the expensive side of town, with a circular driveway and professionally landscaped gardens. Luke's BMW was parked next to Reina's Honda, both cars looking small against the backdrop of the massive house. I rang the doorbell and waited. Luke answered the door himself, looking surprised to see me. Rowan, what are you doing here? We need to talk. I don't think that's a good idea. I think it's a very good idea, unless you want to have this conversation in court. He hesitated, then stepped outside and closed the door behind him. What do you want? I want you to return the money Reina stole from her business. I want you to withdraw your support for her legal claims against me, and I want you to stay away from my wife. She's not your wife anymore. Actually, she is. Until the divorce is final, she's still legally married to me, which makes you an adulterer and her an adulteress. That's not a crime. No, but embezzlement is, and fraud, and conspiracy. Luke's confidence wavered slightly. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. You know exactly what I'm talking about. The question is whether you want to discuss it here or in front of a grand jury. Are you threatening me? I'm offering you a chance to do the right thing. Return the money, end the relationship, and walk away. Otherwise, this is going to end very badly for both of you. You can't prove anything. I pulled out my phone and showed him one of the bank transfer records. Can't I? His face went pale as he recognized the document. How did you get that? Does it matter? The point is, I have it, and I have a lot more where that came from. Reina said you were bluffing. Reina says a lot of things. Most of them are lies. Luke was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then, what do you want? I told you what I want. And if I refuse, then tomorrow morning I'm going to walk into the police station with evidence of embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. I'm going to walk into the state licensing board with evidence of professional misconduct, and I'm going to walk into your wife's office with evidence of adultery. You bastard! I'm not the one who's been stealing money and breaking up marriages. Reina loves me. Reina loves your money. When that's gone, and it will be gone, she'll find someone else to leech off of. You don't know her like I do. I was married to her for 5 years. I know exactly what she's like. Luke looked back at the house, where Reina was presumably waiting for him to come back inside. I need time to think about this. You have until tomorrow morning. After that, the offer expires. I walked back to my truck, leaving Luke standing alone in his driveway. Through the front window of the house, I could see Reina watching us, her face tight with worry. Let them worry. Let them spend the night arguing about what to do, pointing fingers at each other, realizing that their perfect plan was falling apart. Because tomorrow, one way or another, this was going to end. They didn't take the deal. I knew they wouldn't as soon as I saw the morning news. Luke Braddock had held a press conference announcing the Henderson property development, claiming he had full financial backing for the project and expected to break ground within 60 days. It was a desperate bluff, designed to pressure the Henderson family into signing before they learned about his financial problems. But it was also a public commitment that he couldn't back down from without losing face, which meant he was doubling down on the embezzlement scheme. I called my lawyer first, then the police, then Sierra. By noon, I'd filed a formal complaint against Reina for embezzlement and fraud. Sierra had done the same. The district attorney's office said they'd review the evidence and decide whether to press charges. But Luke and Reina weren't waiting around for the legal system to catch up with them. According to Vince, they'd been making frantic phone calls all morning, trying to accelerate the Henderson deal. They're panicking, he reported. Luke called the Henderson family 3 times before 10 a.m., trying to set up an emergency meeting to finalize the sale. What did the Hendersons say? Tom told him they needed more time to review the contract. He didn't mention that you'd already warned him about Luke's financial problems. Good. How long can they stall? A few days, maybe a week. But Luke's going to get suspicious if they keep putting him off. That's fine. A few days is all I need. I spent the afternoon putting the final pieces of my plan into place. I'd been thinking about this for days, and I was ready to make my move. The first step was to cut off Luke's access to the stolen money. I called the bank where the studio kept its accounts and spoke to the manager. a woman named Janet Morrison who'd handled the business banking for several of my clients. "Janet, it's Rowan Kerrick. I need a favor." "What kind of favor?" "I need you to freeze a business account that's been compromised by embezzlement." I explained the situation and provided her with copies of the police reports Sierra and I had filed. Janet agreed to put a temporary hold on any further transfers from the account pending the outcome of the investigation. "That should stop them from moving any more money," she said. "What about the money that's already been transferred?" "That's trickier. If it's been moved to another institution, we'll need a court order to freeze it. I'm working on that." The second step was to expose Luke's financial problems to the people who mattered. I drove to the county building and requested copies of all the liens and judgments filed against Luke's business over the past 2 years. There were more than I'd expected. Unpaid contractor bills, tax liens, penalty assessments from the building department. I made copies of everything and hand-delivered them to Tom Henderson. "This is what you'd be getting into business with," I said. "A man who doesn't pay his bills and cuts corners on his projects." Tom looked through the documents, shaking his head. "Why didn't this come up when we did our due diligence?" "Because Luke's good at hiding his problems, and because he was counting on your family not looking too closely at his finances." "What do you think we should do?" "I think you should withdraw from the deal entirely, find a different buyer, or just hold on to the property for a few more years." "Luke's not going to like that." "Luke's not going to have a choice." The third step was to make sure Reina understood the full scope of what she'd gotten herself into. I drove to Luke's house that evening and waited in the street until I saw them both leave together in his BMW. Then I followed them. They drove to a restaurant on the other side of town, an upscale place where Luke probably thought he wouldn't be recognized. I parked across the street and called Vince. "They're at Romano's," I said. "Looks like they're having a serious conversation." "You want me to come over there?" "No, just keep monitoring their phones and emails. I want to know what they're planning next." I watched them through the restaurant window, two people who thought they were smarter than everyone else, making plans that were already falling apart. Luke was gesturing animatedly, probably trying to convince Reina that everything was under control. Reina was nodding along, but I could see the doubt in her body language. They stayed at the restaurant for 2 hours. When they came out, they were arguing. I followed them back to Luke's house and waited until they went inside. Then I called Reina's cell phone. "Hello, Rowan." Her voice was cold. "We need to talk." "I have nothing to say to you." "Then just listen. The Henderson family is withdrawing from the real estate deal. The bank has frozen the studio accounts. The police are investigating the embezzlement charges. Your boyfriend is about to lose everything, and he's going to take you down with him." "You're lying." "Am I?" "Ask Luke about his conversation with Tom Henderson this afternoon. Ask him about the liens and judgments I delivered to the Henderson family. Ask him how he's going to complete the property purchase without access to the money you stole." The line was quiet for a long moment. "What do you want?" she asked finally. "I want you to come home, end this relationship, return what's left of the money, and we'll figure out how to handle the divorce and the baby situation like adults." "It's too late for that." "Why? Because you love him? Or because you're afraid of what he'll do if you abandon him?" "I'm not afraid of Luke." "You should be. When this deal falls through, he's going to need someone to blame, someone to take responsibility for the embezzlement charges, someone expendable." "He wouldn't do that." "He's already doing it. Check the police report he filed this afternoon. He's claiming he had no knowledge of where you got the money for your investment. He's portraying himself as an innocent victim of your deception." "That's not true. Call the police station and ask them yourself." I hung up and waited. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. "You bastard," Reina said. "You set this up." "I didn't set up anything. I just documented what you and Luke were already doing." "He said he was protecting me." "He was protecting himself, just like he's been doing all along." "What am I supposed to do now?" "Come home. We'll figure it out together." "I can't. I'm pregnant with his baby." "That doesn't mean you have to go to prison for him." She was crying now. "I don't know what to do." "Start by getting away from him. Tonight, before he realizes how much trouble he's in and decides to make it all your fault." "Where would I go?" "Home. To the house we built together. To the life you threw away for a man who was using you. He loves me." "No, he doesn't. He loves your money and your body. When both of those become liabilities instead of assets, he'll throw you away like garbage." "I need time to think." "You don't have time. This is all going to come crashing down in the next few days. The only question is whether you're going to be standing next to Luke when it happens or somewhere safe." The line went quiet again. Then, "If I come home, what happens to the baby?" "We'll figure that out. Maybe Luke will step up and take responsibility. Maybe he won't. But either way, the baby will be better off with a mother who's not in prison. Promise me you won't try to take the baby away from me. I promise. The baby isn't mine, and I don't want to raise another man's child, but I won't stand in the way of you being a mother. Okay, she said finally. Okay, I'll come home tomorrow. Tonight, Reina. Come home tonight, before Luke realizes what's happening. I can't just leave without saying anything. Yes, you can. Write him a note if you want, but get out of there tonight. All right, I'll pack a bag and come home. Good. I'll be waiting. I drove home and waited for my wife to come back to the house we'd built together, to the marriage she'd destroyed, to the life she'd abandoned for a fantasy that was already crumbling around her. She arrived at midnight, looking exhausted and defeated. She had one suitcase and a look in her eyes that I'd never seen before, the look of someone who'd finally realized how badly they'd miscalculated. Thank you, she said as she walked through the door. Don't thank me yet. This isn't over. What do you mean? I mean, Luke's not going to just let you walk away, and the legal problems aren't going to disappear just because you came home. What's going to happen? I don't know, but whatever happens, we'll face it together, like we should have been doing all along. She nodded and went upstairs to what used to be our bedroom. I stayed downstairs, listening to her move around above me, wondering if we could ever find our way back to something resembling a normal life. Probably not. Too much had happened, too much trust had been broken. But maybe we could find a way to end this without destroying each other completely. The next morning would bring new challenges, new problems to solve. But for tonight, at least, Reina was safe. And Luke Braddock was about to discover what it felt like to lose everything. Luke discovered Reina was gone at 6 a.m. I know because he called her phone every 5 minutes for an hour, then showed up at my house at 7:15, pounding on the front door like he was trying to break it down. I let him pound for a while before I opened it. Where is she? He demanded. Who? Don't play games with me, Rowan. Where's Reina? She's upstairs, sleeping, which is what most people do at 7 a.m. She left me. Good for her. Luke tried to push past me into the house, but I blocked his way. He was bigger than me, but I had 20 years of construction work and 4 years of military training on my side. He wasn't getting past me unless I let him. I want to talk to her. She doesn't want to talk to you. She's carrying my baby. Then you should have treated her better. This is your doing. You poisoned her against me. I didn't have to. You did that all by yourself when you decided to use her as a scapegoat for your embezzlement scheme. His face went red. I never. Save it for the police, Luke. They'll want to hear all about how you had no idea where Reina got the money she invested with you. That money was a legitimate business investment. Stolen from her business partner without authorization? That's embezzlement, not investment. You can't prove I knew it was stolen. Can't I? I pulled out my phone and showed him a screenshot of one of his emails to Reina. Quote, make sure Sierra doesn't find out about the transfers until after the Henderson deal closes. End quote. Sounds like you knew exactly what you were asking her to do. Luke's face went pale. How did you get that? Does it matter? The point is, I have it, and I have a lot more where that came from. You hacked into my email. I documented your criminal conspiracy. There's a difference. I'll have you arrested for computer crimes. Good luck with that. I think the police are going to be too busy arresting you for embezzlement and fraud to worry about how the evidence was obtained. Luke stood there for a moment, breathing hard, realizing that his perfect plan had turned into a complete disaster. What do you want? He asked finally. I want you to leave my wife alone. I want you to return the money you stole, and I want you to turn yourself in to the police before they come looking for you. I can't return money I've already spent. Then you're going to prison. Reina's going to prison too. She's the one who actually took the money. Maybe, but she's pregnant and cooperating with the investigation. You're a repeat offender with a history of financial crimes. Who do you think the judge is going to be more sympathetic toward? Luke was quiet for a long moment, thinking through his options. None of them were good. Let me talk to her, he said. 5 minutes. That's all I want. No. She's having my baby. I have a right. You have no rights here. You're a criminal who seduced a married woman and convinced her to steal money for you. The best thing you can do now is disappear before this gets any worse. It's not going to end like this. Yes, it is. I closed the door in his face and locked it. Through the window, I watched him stand on my porch for another minute, then walk back to his car. He sat there for a while, making phone calls, probably trying to figure out how to salvage the situation. Eventually, he drove away. I made coffee and called Vince. Luke was just here, I said. He's getting desperate. Desperate men do stupid things. That's what I'm counting on. Reina came downstairs around 9, looking tired but more composed than she had the night before. Was that Luke I heard earlier? He wanted to talk to you. I told him you weren't available. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This isn't over. What do you mean? I mean he's not going to give up easily. He's facing serious criminal charges, and he's going to try to minimize his exposure by maximizing yours. What can he do? He can claim the embezzlement was entirely your idea. He can say he was an innocent victim of your deception. He can try to paint himself as another one of your victims. But that's not true. Truth doesn't always matter in court. What matters is what you can prove. Reina sat down at the kitchen table and put her head in her hands. I've made such a mess of everything. Yes, you have, but it's not too late to fix some of it. How? By cooperating fully with the police investigation, by returning whatever money you still have access to, by telling the truth about Luke's role in the scheme. He'll hate me. He already hates you. The question is whether you're going to let him destroy you to save himself. My phone rang. It was my lawyer. Rowan, we have a problem. Luke Braddock just filed a restraining order against you, claiming you threatened him with violence and harassment. That's ridiculous. Maybe, but the judge signed it. You're not allowed to go within 100 yards of him or his property. What about his attempts to contact Reina? That's a separate issue. Has he been harassing her? He was here this morning, demanding to see her. Document everything. If he keeps it up, we can file for a restraining order against him. After I hung up, I explained the situation to Reina. He's trying to isolate you, I said. Make it so you can't get support from anyone except him. What should I do? Stay here. Don't go anywhere alone. Don't take his calls. What if he comes back? Then we call the police. But Luke was smarter than that. Instead of coming back himself, he sent Sierra. She showed up that afternoon, looking angry and determined. I need to talk to Reina, she said when I answered the door. She's not feeling well. I know she's here, Rowan. I just want to talk to her. About what? About the money she stole from our business. I let Sierra in and called for Reina. She came downstairs reluctantly, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. Hello, Sierra. Hello, Reina. We need to talk. They sat in the living room while I made coffee. I could hear their voices from the kitchen, Sierra demanding explanations, Reina offering apologies and excuses. $200,000, Sierra was saying. That's everything we saved for expansion, everything we worked for. I know, I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't pay the bills, Reina. Sorry doesn't keep the studio open. I'll pay it back. How? With what money? Luke said a lot of things. Most of them were lies. He promised me the investment would pay off. He promised you whatever you wanted to hear so you'd steal money for him. Reina was crying now. I didn't mean for this to happen. But it did happen, and now I have to figure out how to save our business. What do you want me to do? I want you to sign over your share of the studio to me. Complete ownership transfer, no compensation. Sierra, I can't. You can, and you will. It's either that or I'll make sure you go to prison for embezzlement. I walked into the living room. That's enough. This doesn't concern you, Rowan. It concerns me when someone threatens my wife in my house. Your wife stole $200,000 from me, and she's going to face the consequences for that, but not because you're blackmailing her. I'm not blackmailing anyone. I'm trying to save my business. Then work with the police and the lawyers. Don't try to intimidate a pregnant woman into signing legal documents. Sierra looked back and forth between us, realizing she wasn't going to get what she wanted through threats. Fine, she said. We'll do this the hard way. She left without another word. Reina collapsed on the couch, sobbing. She's right, she said. I destroyed everything. Not everything. Not yet. What's left? Your freedom. Your baby. Your chance to start over. How can I start over with all this hanging over me? One step at a time. First, we deal with the legal problems, then we figure out the rest. The phone rang. It was Vince. You need to see this, he said. Luke just held another press conference. I turned on the local news. Luke was standing in front of the Henderson property, surrounded by reporters and cameras. Deeply disappointed by the malicious rumors being spread about this project, he was saying. The financing for this development is solid, and we expect to break ground within 30 days. A reporter asked about the embezzlement allegations. I was the victim of a sophisticated fraud perpetrated by a disturbed individual, Luke said. I trusted someone who betrayed that trust, and I'm cooperating fully with the police investigation. Another reporter asked if he was referring to Reina. I don't want to comment on an ongoing investigation, but I will say this. When someone you care about deceives you and steals from you, it's a devastating betrayal. I turned off the TV. Luke was throwing Reina under the bus, just as I'd predicted. "He's making it all my fault," Reina said. "Of course he is. That's what men like him do." "What am I going to do?" "You're going to tell the truth, all of it, and you're going to let the evidence speak for itself." "What if no one believes me?" "Then we'll make sure they have no choice." That evening, I called Tom Henderson. "Tom, it's Rowan. I saw Luke's press conference today." "Yeah, we saw it too. Pretty brazen, considering his financial situation." "Are you still planning to withdraw from the deal?" "Absolutely. Our lawyer is drafting the withdrawal letter now." "Good. Just be ready for Luke to turn hostile once he realizes the deal is off." "How nasty?" "He's facing serious criminal charges and financial ruin. He's going to blame everyone except himself." "We can handle Luke Braddock." "I'm sure you can, but be careful anyway." I hung up and turned to Reina, who was sitting on the couch staring at her phone. "Luke's been texting me all day," she said. "He wants to meet." "Don't do it." "He says he has a plan to fix everything." "His plans are what got you into this mess." "Maybe he really does have a solution." "Reina, listen to me. Luke Braddock is not going to save you. He's not going to fix this. He's going to try to convince you to take full responsibility for the embezzlement so he can walk away clean." "You don't know that. I know men like him. When they're cornered, they'll sacrifice anyone to save themselves." "But what if—" "No. No what-ifs. You're not meeting with him. You're not talking to him. You're not giving him another chance to manipulate you. You can't control what I do." "No, but I can protect you from making another catastrophic mistake." We stared at each other across the living room. Two people who'd once loved each other, now bound together by circumstances neither of us had wanted. "I'm scared," she said finally. I know, but running back to Luke isn't going to make it better." "Then what will?" "Time, truth, and accepting responsibility for what you've done." "And then what?" "Then we figure out how to move forward. Separately, probably, but without destroying each other in the process." She nodded, wiping tears from her eyes. "Okay, I won't meet with him." "Good. But Rowan." "Yeah? When this is all over, will you be able to forgive me?" I thought about that for a long moment. "I don't know, but I'm willing to try." It wasn't much, but it was a start. And right now, a start was all we had. The next morning would bring new challenges, new problems to solve. But for tonight, we were both safe, and Luke Braddock was running out of options. Tomorrow, his world would start collapsing in earnest. And this time, Reina wouldn't be there to cushion his fall. 2 weeks later, Luke Braddock was arrested at his office on charges of embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. The Henderson family had withdrawn from the real estate deal, and without their purchase, Luke's financial house of cards collapsed completely. Reina was charged as well, but her cooperation with the investigation and her pregnancy convinced the prosecutor to offer her a plea deal: restitution, community service, and probation instead of prison time. Sierra managed to save the fitness studio by selling it to a competitor and using the proceeds to pay off the debts. She moved to Portland and started over with a new business. Reina and I divorced quietly 6 months later. She had the baby, a boy, and Luke eventually acknowledged paternity, though he was in no position to provide financial support from prison. I kept the house and started my own construction company. Business was good. Apparently being the guy who'd exposed Luke Braddock's crimes had earned me a reputation for